Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin, and I am located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie, and I am a transformational life coach, and I'm also an abundant receiver, and I'm in San Diego, California.
We want to thank you so much for listening or watching today, however you're enjoying this episode. Especially if you're new, we want to mention to you that we sometimes mention the names of Abraham Hicks or Esther Hicks or both on the podcast here. If you're not familiar with those names, Esther is a speaker and author who channels Abraham. Abraham is described as a group of entities from beyond our physical world who share their wisdom by speaking through Esther at workshops and speaking opportunities around the world. Might sound a little weird, but it's cool. Trust us. You can find more about them by searching on YouTube or searching on your web browser. But you can also, they have a website, abraham-hicks.com, where you can find out more information. Each week we start our discussion from a different jumping off point. And I guess I have the jumping off point this week. And I did briefly just try to run it by Stephanie right before we hit record, because sometimes my topics, I feel like they have a little too much resistance. And I want to have the episode from a place of abundance and possibility and all that. But she said, go ahead and hit record in mid-sentence. So I guess my topic's okay. So recently, something I am surprisingly struggling with a little bit is the fact that, and I've talked about this on the podcast before, when I was a kid and when I was in college, I played a tabletop role-playing game called Dungeons and Dragons. It was super fun for me. It was one of the biggest sources of joy in my life. And then I just didn't play for like a really long time, more than 20 years actually, which is always scary for me to say out loud. But thanks to a lot to the work that we do here with the art of allowing and understanding how the law of attraction works. So like now I have this like amazingly abundant Dungeons and Dragons life. I play every Saturday with a group that plays D&D online, not the video game version, but we transport the tabletop version to an online environment. And then I run a Dungeons and Dragons game at a gaming store in Burbank. Shout out to Emerald Knights Comics and Games in Burbank, by the way. So I run a game there every Tuesday night for 7 other people. We've been playing that every week for over a year and still going strong.
Woo!
And it's led to all this other stuff. I watch, Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing game videos on YouTube, and always come up with different ideas and things like that. Buying games and books in that world.
Collin drove down. We went and saw the movie here in San Diego when it came out. Yeah.
Which again, if people haven't seen the Dungeons and Dragons movie, it's amazing and it's really wonderful. I was just thinking yesterday about the scene in the graveyard. Spoiler alert, but that scene in the graveyard is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
That was great. Yeah.
That comes right out of the game too. Like it was really heartwarming for me as a fan, because I was like, that's something that happens in the game when you're playing it. And then the writers were so brilliant. They gave you an experience as watching the movie that you might have playing the game. It was really great. Also yesterday was free tabletop role-playing game day nationwide in America. And so I went to Geeky T's games also in Burbank for their free tabletop role-playing game day event. And they were having a bunch of different stuff they were raffling off, but you only got one raffle ticket, and you had to choose what thing you were trying to win the raffle for. And they had a giant size, like, I don't know, it was like 6 feet tall movie poster of the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And so I put my ticket in for that.
Ooh.
So if I win that, one of my walls here in my apartment's going to suddenly have
the
D&D movie poster all over.
We got our picture taken on the stand-up poster in the theater that we went to.
Yes, down in San Diego.
Yep.
So, but here's the thing, and I mean, it's been a very strange thing to realize, because I'm also a musician. I'm in a band called Red Treasure here in Los Angeles. We've been together since 2017. We've put out 2 albums. We've performed at clubs all over LA. We've even done shows in like Anaheim and Chino, around a little far away from LA. But we were sort of going strong through the pandemic. Actually, we were doing Zoom acoustic concerts because we couldn't do live, in person during the pandemic. But really, the band sort of seemed to peter out a little bit. Like, part of that is just I was doing so much stuff with Dungeons and Dragons that I didn't, just the way I organized my time, I just didn't put as much time into the band. But also, like, my primary bandmate Gabriel, he's been going through some life changes. He's moved. He's had a girlfriend for a while, but I think his life is expanding in that way. They got a dog together. There's all this stuff going on. Anyway, so recently, I feel like the universe has been telling me like, oh, but I wasn't meant to just like let the band go completely. And now it feels like I'm getting these indicators, like these indicating experiences, where it's like the universe is like, hey, now
What
there's.
would one of them be? I'm curious.
So Gabe is the other musician in the band. He and I have day jobs for the same company. We work in different departments, but we see each other every now and then because we go to the same workplace and everything. We were at a work event. One of our coworkers had a birthday party, and after work in this bar restaurant, and one of our coworkers, who neither of us knew very well, came up to us. We were just talking about things, and our mutual coworker asked me to do karaoke with her. She wanted to do Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen with karaoke. Turns out she was just kidding.
Oh.
And she didn't know I was a musician. So like I was all ready to like, oh man, there's a lot of high notes in that. Like, like I'm like getting ready to go. Yeah. And she had no intention of actually doing it. She was just kidding around. Like she heard that the bar had karaoke, so she was making a joke. But so that just led to a conversation. Gabriel actually came over at that point to talk to me, and I was already in conversation with her, our coworker Alejandra, who did not know she was going to get mentioned on this podcast today.
Alejandra.
And she just didn't know anything about us. Like a lot of our coworkers at that place know about it because we've been in the band since 2017. Some of the people at that place are fans and everything. But Alejandra didn't know anything about it, so she was really curious. She was asking us about it, and so we were telling her kind of some of our experiences and everything. And she just kept saying like, "I can't wait to see you guys live." Like she wanted us to send her a bunch of like our links to our music and videos and stuff, and we did that. And then even after the party the next day, after she'd watched some of our videos, she's like, "You guys are great. I want to see you guys live. Like, I can't wait to see you guys live." And there's been a few other things, but that was the major thing. It's just like, it just felt like, I think that's the gift these days. It's like, sometimes I am, and especially before I knew about the law of attraction, I was just oblivious to clues like that the universe gives you, because, and the other thing is, I don't ever, sort of your thing about nibbles from last week's episode, like it was nibbles in the animal. Sorry, if you don't know this, if you don't get the details of this, you got to listen to last week's episode if you haven't already. But when you were talking to the animal communicator, was helping you talk to your dog Nibbles, and Nibbles said to the communicator, "I really love my family. I want to live with Stephanie." Now that was an external someone external to you, meaning Nibbles, who was saying that. But there was an internal truth that you actually had in your gut before that.
Yeah.
But as we talked about last week, you're listening to all sorts of facts, that were like, I can't have a dog and rah, rah, rah. But like your heart or your inner being or whatever, your connection to your higher power was like, oh no, I do want to keep Nibbles. And Nibbles, that experience was like that. So one of the gifts, I think, of doing this work for as many years as I have is when I get that sort of experience, I'm like, oh, that's not just some random person who just randomly said they wanted to. Like there was something about it that's just like, if you saw it in a movie, the audience would know, like, oh, that's a really
important thing. Yeah.
So, but here's the thing, I do have a day job that I've had for several years.
Okay, pause.
Yes.
I'm gonna pause you.
Oh, okay. This is like a coaching session. I love it.
Yeah, even when you in between
I know where you're going.
Recordings, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna do a little coaching session here. And I really wanted you to hit record because I think it's really important for all of our listeners to hear this, right? Because we can all relate, like in our last week's episode, I had a lot of resistance. And so the reason why I'm going to pause you is because now you're going to name off all those reasons
The
why
facts.
you
The
can't.
facts. We
Just
talked about this
like
last week. Yeah.
I said to the animal communicator when she said to me, well, Nibbles said that he really loves his family. Nibbles said, I love my family,
Yep.
but I want to live with Stephanie. And when she
Yeah.
said that to me, relayed that information to me, I'm going to cry right now. I said to her, I don't want a full-time dog.
Yeah.
I can't have an animal where I live.
Yeah.
I'm going to be getting outside employment. I can't
Facts.
facts, right? These were real to me. These were so real to me of
And
why
some
I
of them are
can't.
absolutely true. Like, it's not that
Right.
they're untrue.
And because of my recent experience, what ended up happening, because always after the fact, that when I can look back, right? After the
Mhm.
fact, then I can look back of how my heart and soul was like, I want him to have a good home.
Yeah.
The universe, like, you do, and you're the home. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But him staying here and I asked my landlady, can he be here while I rehome him? And I've done everything in my power. He stays in my room. When I need to take him outside, I make sure Blue, who's the other dog that doesn't like other dogs very much, she's either outside or in another room. I've done my best to keep them separate so that Nibbles is safe and there's no conflict at all. And so just this gradual softening of resistance has helped me come to that knowingness that
Mhm.
you heard. I didn't know it in the moment. Same thing right now. I'm hearing you have a lot of resistance because
Mhm.
you have these facts.
Yeah.
And what will probably happen, as always, the universe curves, things shift a little. It might be a little uncomfortable. They shift, they get a little less uncomfortable. And
Yep.
then the outcome is, like right now, I'm thinking, dude, you can have Dungeons and Dragons in your life.
Yep.
You can have your day job.
Yep.
And you can have, because I remember you talking about the Dungeons and Dragons. You're like, I don't know where I'm going to find time to do all this stuff.
100%. 100%. I mean, I remember crystal clear. I mean, I'm glad I told you so you could remind me also, but like, I remember 100% believing, because I know Dungeons and Dragons, because I love it and I'm passionate about it, but also because it's like a lot of hobbies. It can, once you get into it, there's a lot of stuff you could do, I remember thinking I 100% don't have time to enjoy Dungeons and Dragons the way I would like to. Like, I would only be able to devote X hours a week, and that's not enough to really, enjoy it. And I use that fact, I'm doing air quotes for the audio listeners, um, as a reason for many, many, many years to just not even try to play because of that I allowed that belief to just be a barrier in my way. And what I think you just helped me really realize is that yes, all those facts were going to bubble up. If I'd been allowed to, my brain would have just like shot them out my mouth at you, like, meh, meh, meh. But underneath that, and we talked about this last week too, but underneath the facts is I have to figure out how it'll all work. Which now
Another
what I know is
fallacy, as you
I
said in
don't
last
have to do
week's
that. Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have to figure that out. And this is the thing I was talking about with my group of friends yesterday. Also, I think I mentioned this last week episode. Sorry, um, but like, it feels like because okay, so if I acknowledge that, right, like, okay, I have this belief that I have to figure out, okay, in Dungeons and Dragons, how's it all going to work together without me being overwhelmed and my life getting out of control? Okay, I understand now because I'm in clarity. I don't have to figure that out. But like, the moment after that feels so scary because it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
then how is it gonna work?
Yeah.
Like, and again, our brains that are built to like defend us against problems, threats, and dangers. 99% of the time these days, we're not in danger for our actual lives.
Exactly.
There isn't a
Yeah.
car streaming towards us that we need to like dodge
And
out.
do you know why? This is so fascinating to me. Do you know why that is? Because in those moments,
Hmm.
however many years ago, we shot off rockets of desires then too, of wanting
Yeah,
to be more safe, of
yeah,
wanting to feel protected, of wanting things to work out. And because law of attraction is always working, that went out into the vortex, and
Yeah.
then we then allowed. And so
Yeah.
things, I mean, think about even is not that long ago of the 1800s, when there was no electricity, where
Yeah.
women were having to wash clothes with a washboard. And now we have all of these conveniences because of people who lived then and shot off rockets of desire.
Yeah.
So, but that is that hard part. And I didn't know that I had so much resistance several weeks ago
You know,
about,
my thing specifically, and I'm not blaming anyone, my whole approach to my responsibility about what I think, what I believe, what I do in my life is like, once I turned 18, I was an adult. It's my job to like manage any of my crap, like I might have learned stuff from other people that even some of them might have drilled it into me when I was a kid, but like I can't do anything about that. All I can do from 18 years old on is just like, whatever, go to therapy, read a book,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
do affirmations in the mirror, whatever the hell. Like it's my responsibility. But I do remember, especially when I was younger, I think well-intentioned adults a lot of times, like family members or people in the church that I was in when I was a kid or whatever. I would say, people would ask me, "What do you want to do in your future?" or something, and if I said something so often, not from everybody, but a lot of times the response was, "Well, how are you going to do that? You got
Yeah,
to figure out how you're going to do that."
yeah,
And I think the adults that were saying those things were just, they had a good intent deep down, which is just like, we want you to be safe when you grow up, we want you to have a
yeah,
good life when you grow up,
absolutely.
we want you to be happy and safe and healthy and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
But the unintended negative effect with that is that it trained my brain even further to be like, as soon as I want something, or as soon as I have an idea of something I want to create, my brain is like a second person in my own mind saying, well, you better know how that's all going to work.
That's what do they call that? The critical parent,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, that's
But
okay.
I've even had
So,
that experience with,
so let
oh,
me,
sorry.
so I
Yeah.
just, I'm just want to ask you this question. So going back to, you're getting these indicators about the band,
Yes.
and now your concern is like how you're going to fit it into your schedule.
Yeah. I think specifically, just give me a little bit of rope here. I won't go too far with it. But one habit that has been damaging in my life, that is self-inflicted, comes from my own issue, is I take on too much and I overwhelm myself,
Hmm.
and it becomes stressful, and I actually can't enjoy things
Yeah.
as I might otherwise be able to. So my
Right.
concern is that, like, yeah, I've like what I what I was going to start this episode with was a question of like, what happens when you have too much good stuff? Like you actually
Yeah.
you're aware of the law of attraction, how it works all the time. You've learned the art of allowing. You practice it. Again, I don't practice it perfectly, but I've been practicing it a lot in the last few years, and now I have so much good stuff in my life. Um, you know, like I could play D&D like all day if I was allowed to. But it's like, oh, but now I think I do also want to incorporate, like I want to get back into, I would like the band to perform again and make our record that
Hmm.
we never got to make and all that during COVID. Um, so it's kind of like, but how do I do that and not get overwhelmed, and not like, feel stressed out and all that sort of stuff. And I think, like we were talking before, the way the best approach is just say, okay, the universe has a way that's already figured out of how you can
Well,
enjoy all those things together. The important thing to avoid is like, don't sit down and come up with Collin's mind's plan that has to be executed perfectly of how all these things will, because
that's future tripping too.
yeah,
I just started hearing this a lot, future tripping, and I love that
yeah,
because I can relate to it. And so you're just not there yet. So you're
yeah,
getting indications
yeah.
that the band will probably start coming together again. And
I think that's one thing that really, it's funny. Like a lot of times, and I mean, hopefully other people can relate to this. Um, Otherwise, I'll feel lonely and like a weirdo, uh, which I've never
you're
felt
never
before.
lonely. And you might be a
But
weirdo, but there's lots of us weirdos out there to
like,
accompany you.
like a lot of times, if I want something, like let's say I want a new car,
Mhm.
and I identify the new car I want, I put pressure on myself to try to manifest it like
I know, it's so
immediately,
ridiculous.
and it's kind
Like,
of
well,
like,
how?
yeah,
That's mine. Always how?
and
How?
the universe. I think, how should I say this? It's gonna go the easiest for me if I leave the time frame as wide open to the universe as I can. Now, sometimes you can't. Like that time in my life where I had 30 days to find a new place in LA.
Yeah.
I didn't have infinite. I didn't say to the universe like, well, you have 7 years or whatever.
And
You know?
same with thing with me when when my divorce was final, I got the
Yeah.
letter. I forget what day it was. I think it was the week before Thanksgiving. And I was like, oh, and I told Lou, I said, I'll be out by December 31st. And he's like, okay. And then I said, and if I don't find a place by then, can I have another month, till January? And he paused for a second. He goes, no, let's go with December 31st. And I go, okay. And then I remember I was going to go to the movies that night. I canceled my movie reservations and I started going through my side dresser in my room. I'm like, okay, I got to get rid of stuff. I'm going to be moving.
All right, time to go.
And
Yeah.
and literally I looked and looked and looked, couldn't find anything. And it was literally like 7 days before I had to move out
Mm,
when I found this place.
mm,
7 days before.
yeah.
I had no idea where I was going to go. I didn't know what I was going to do. And yet it worked out.
Yeah.
Literally, Collin, I moved in here December 31st. I had packed up all the rest of my things. My car was just loaded. I pulled into the driveway here. And because we have a view of SeaWorld and the bay and the ocean and everything, I pull up. It was like 8:45. Literally a few minutes later, fireworks went off at SeaWorld. I just got
Mm,
chills up my legs. And I just stood there watching the fireworks. Our next door neighbors were having a party. They were all out on their balcony watching the fireworks. And it was almost like the universe going, yay, you did it. I'm divorced. I'm single now. I've moved out. I'm on my own. I have my place to live.
yeah.
It was December 31st. So I woke up the next morning, the beginning of the first of the year. I didn't know any of that 6 weeks prior, 4 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior, 2 weeks prior. And it was stressful, but it all worked out.
It's funny. This is reminding me of a quote I found, and I apologize. I don't remember. I wrote down the first name of the person, but I don't have anything else. So the first name doesn't really help you. I don't remember if it was on social media. It must have been on social media or the internet somewhere. And it really stuck with me. And I was like, we should have this as a topic. And now it's like kind of sort of feels like perfect timing for me. So this person had taken a darkness retreat, which is a new kind of, well, maybe it's been going on for a while, but it's becoming more widely known, where people go into a room or a space, and people who don't know about it think it's like you're just in total darkness the whole time. You actually do have the ability to turn on a dim light if you need it, um, but you're encouraged to be in darkness as much as possible. And it's like for a whole day or like 48 hours or something. And some people are finding this helpful as just a way to like process stuff or just sort of get more in touch with their inner being or inner truth or whatever. But I wrote this down because it was like, oh my God, this is so powerful. So this woman's name is Jess, and my apologies, I don't have a last name or whatever, but the quote is, "It has been almost a year since my first darkness retreat, and it is difficult to explain how it has impacted me in words. It seems too simple. All I can say is that I have stopped searching. I have everything I need. I am everything that I need."
Mm.
And the reason that struck a chord with me is because when she says, all I can say is that I've stopped searching, I think when it's a natural thing as humans, we have new desires all the time. Even if we get a bunch of stuff we want, it's just part of who we are. We just desire other things.
Mm-hmm. Wraps up.
But
Absolutely.
it's like as soon as we desire something, our practical, quote unquote selves start searching, which could be, trying to control it, trying to figure out the how, could be. And I love how she says she stopped searching. I have everything I need. I am everything that I need. Because for me, that's like it feels counterintuitive, like a lot of stuff, the art of allowing, but it feels like if I can just, because that's the truth right now. Like part of me would love to know that we have a show booked somewhere at some club in LA.
You do though. That's the thing.
Well,
Energetically, you
right,
do.
right, 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 right. But but what I was gonna say is, I'm super happy today. Like, I'm super happy. Like,
Mm.
honestly, my day job, it's not the most fun, amazing thing in the world, but it's great. It is actually great.
Oh, what?
There's a bunch of things I could tell you about it that is great. There's some stuff that I don't like,
That's always the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Dungeons and Dragons life, which I'm talking about this all the time here on the podcast. I mean, the people I get to play with, the fun, the creativity, the imagination. I mean, it's blissful. Like, I'm in bliss a lot, over the course of my day. Um, so that's the reality. The reality is I'm super happy today. Like, I have these desires.
Dude, did you just hear yourself what you said?
No, what did I say?
The reality is I'm super happy today.
Yeah, I am. I really am.
Did you ever, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, did you ever think you would say that and feel it and believe it and experience it?
I have to say, partly yes. I mean, I feel like one thing about me, and there's definitely a downside, but one thing I very much like about myself is that I'm a truth seeker, and I knew when I came into adulthood that I had some issues and I had some, like, things weren't working the way that I really would like them to. But I do have this kind of faith in myself that, like, I look for answers. If something isn't working in my life, I look for answers, and I'm willing to do some learning. If I need to learn new things, I'm willing to try to let go of things if I need to let go of things. And so I do feel like when I found out but especially when I found out about the law of attraction and specifically the art of allowing with Esther Hicks and Abraham, I did think when I was starting to learn that stuff, like, oh, this is I was gonna swear, this is it. Like, this is the key to happiness. So I did think at some point I would get here. But I definitely had massive doubt along the way.
Well, that's the Collin part that I'm speaking of, because
exactly.
I can picture you and I'm like, I don't think
You could
that
talk to me.
Collin.
I mean, it's
I don't
entirely
think,
possible that you'll talk to me like tomorrow at noon, and I'll just be like, "Why is my life so bad?"
yeah, that the Collin that I'm thinking of, if I was to play that, you'd be like, that's not possible. How? What? Blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah,
Oh,
blah. No
100%.
way. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God, I'm so happy for you. That's fabulous.
Well, I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. I've been wanting to say this. I've been wanting to say this, and I'm like, I don't know when the perfect. It seemed like it was time earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt you. But there were so many people when I would be out and about with Nibbles, and I'd say, "Oh, do you have a dog? Do you know anybody who would like a dog? I'm having to rehome him." They would always say, "But he loves you." Like, they just
It
saw.
was so hard for me not to say that when you told me that you had made the decision you were letting go of him, because I was like, oh.
People saw, like, people that didn't even know either one
Yeah.
of us, but they were in our they were right there witnessing us.
Yeah.
They saw the love
Yeah.
that was between, and I was just like, oh my God. And I was just so on the track of I can't,
Yeah.
that it wasn't even, I was just so resistant.
I had a similar experience when our coworker Alejandro was so overly enthusiastic about seeing the band's next show, because it certainly crossed my mind to, like, tell her the facts, like, we haven't rehearsed in a while, like,
And you didn't.
we didn't.
That is progress.
It really
Dude,
is.
that
It
is
really
progress for you to withhold from
And Gabe
spouting
doesn't
out all
even listen.
those.
Gabe, my bandmate, doesn't even listen to this podcast. I give him credit because he didn't do it either. Like, he just, I think he and I were like, this is a little weird because we both know, like, at least in the surface practical world, it doesn't really matter, like, how far we are from doing a next show. But, like, there was something about,
but that's not even really true,
her getting lit up.
Yeah.
And especially when she'd heard a few of our songs and she was even more lit up. It's like, that's what I should listen to. And then just, like, the rest of the stuff, just, like, let it go, which may not be the easiest thing, my doubts.
Well, and that's why, I keep saying, like, that's why we do this podcast.
100%.
is because like I need to keep hearing it. I know you want to keep hearing it and keep practicing it
Yeah.
because it's a lifelong practice. And like I really wanted to be the part of the solution and not part of the problem in the world. And I was like, God, a lot of people don't know this information. Like, you know,
That's the thing, you know.
I want to voice it. I want to be an open channel for it. I want to have a
Yeah.
platform. And when you said, let's do a podcast, I was like, okay. And then here we are in our 6th season and we have regular listeners. Thank you all. And I'm just like, wow. And we get to talk about this because we share our lives and we've had resistance and we've had ups and downs and joy and sadness and pain. And we're just real in life. And, you know, how do we use this, the art of allowing and the law of attraction to our best ability to like maneuver life and win at playing the game of life?
How do we use the most important question? How do we use the Boston Red Sox to teach the world anything is possible?
Don't let us win tonight. You know what happened. Don't let us win tonight.
But you know,
all I can hear is win tonight. Let us win tonight. Not but let us win tonight.
I was thinking,
Kevin,
we got to wrap up because we're over 30 minutes. But something I want to mention is, you know, it's interesting because for me, I don't think I could have, if the universe had shown me Esther Hicks and Abraham Hicks and their teachings before I had seen the film The Secret, I don't think I would have been open to it at all. Like I needed to see The Secret first and process that and try to understand that for a while. Then when I saw the DVD extras on You Can Heal Your Life, that the film, the Hay House film, where Jerry and Esther Hicks are like, there's a long interview with them. I was ready for that at that point, but I definitely wasn't ready for everything Abraham had to say. Like then there was a period where like I listened to one of the audiobooks, I started watching some workshop videos and like slowly, and then next thing I know, you and I are in Anaheim with Wayne Dyer, and
I know,
but I was thinking, you know, like one thing I really love about how I've approached this podcast is because early on, you know, like I was tracking like how many views do we have on YouTube this week? How many listeners do we have on the audio version across all the different platforms like Spotify and, you know, Apple Podcasts and everything? Because you can get that data and it shows you like, you know, how many did you have? You know, did you have one more listener this week than last week and all this sort of stuff? And I realized early on that was not good for me because because again, facts, beliefs, you know, my brain was like, well, if you really want to have a podcast, it should be like, you know, massively popular and you should have thousands or millions of listeners or whatever. And you should have all that immediately or whatever. And what I've realized is over the course of it, like, it's just better for me to just come here and just do this podcast and like let the universe control who finds it, who listens to it, who watches it. And that has gone spectacularally, by the way, because you know, when we get comments from Sarah or Jacqueline or Kelly or whatever, I'm always like,
Herlaney.
Like I just showed up and had a conversation with my friend, and somehow we're creating something that's helpful for other people. But the other thing too is like, not everybody, like the universe is picking, is one way to think about it. The universe is choosing who's ready for this podcast and when they're ready for it. And there's going to be people who are in need of it and are not ready for it. Kind of like I was in need of what Abraham had to share, but I had to see The Secret and then process for a couple of years before I was like ready to hear the rest of the stuff. So like our listeners and viewers probably are like, you know, it's like you have to want to learn about this stuff, but you also have to be open to it, you know. Like, and there's some people who need what we have to say and they're not open to it yet, and like they're not our listeners or viewers yet. You know. Exactly. But they may be when they're ready, you know. So it's helpful for me to understand that there's a greater, you know, the law of attraction, just the way it works is all this stuff works itself out for everyone. You know, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about, well, why don't we have more viewers or listeners, whatever. It's like you have the perfect number of viewers and listeners right now. A year from now, you'll have, you know, the perfect number for then, you know, like, so don't fucking worry about that stuff, you know, like don't obsess over it. But anyway.
So thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you so much.
We're like a happy family here.
Yes, and remember, we are posting a brand new episode for you every Monday morning at this point. And we truly appreciate you doing whatever your platform allows you to do to support us, like us, follow us, subscribe us, whatever. And thank you so much for the comments on YouTube. Sarah especially has left us a couple of gems the last few weeks. So thank you so much, Sarah, for that. But for everybody who comments, we really appreciate it. All our social media links and our email address are in the doobly-doo in the description and the YouTube version down below. We wish you a happy and abundant week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.